Hello and welcome to the Car Care Nut Shop, and today we have a 2008 Toyota Sienna. The owner bought it, somewhat not doing their full inspection. They're nervous about it. There are a few concerns. So in this video, let's go test drive it. Let's go bring it in the shop. We'll check it out, see what this Sienna needs. Let's go walk to it. Honestly, I don't even know where this car is parked. It is somewhere. Oh, there it is. There it is. I see one Sienna. Let's walk to it. Looks good from far away. This came to us from like 3 hours away, somewhere in Indiana. Excuse the neighbors. Sorry, neighbors, we parked in front of your place. That looks pretty good. Could use a wash, but otherwise pretty straight. Let's take it for a drive and see what we see. Pretty clean on the inside. Usually minivans and smells are a thing, but this one, it's not bad. Right off though, I see that the dash has some cracks. That is something with these Siennas, unfortunately. So this is gonna need a dash replacement. And this thing, if you look here, I don't know if you can get it, Jose, this is pretty bad. This was a common thing with these, with the dash cracking like that. I see a tire light flashing already. So we got a few things. Let's take it for a drive and we'll see. Well, this van has 141,000 miles. It has a flashing tire light. I'm gonna kind of investigate that. It has some kind of aftermarket parking sensor deal. All right. Well, the steering shaft doesn't make noise. That's a good sign. Usually, like at low speeds, semi-older Toyotas, you turn the wheel and you'll hear all kinds of clunking noises. It's not a safety concern, but it's annoying. Ooh, we have a roaring lion or roaring bearing. I'm gonna hear that. Let's see. I can hear it like. Oh, we have a very bad bearing. Yeah, I hope you can hear it. We'll go. But first, I still got a Tesla graveyard. It is very rampant. We have a lot of Teslas all over the place here. Oh, we have some completed Teslas here, looks like. I think this is a good body shop. Our neighbors. But let's get back to our Sienna because we have a bearing that is ready to launch. Let's take it down the street. Let's see. 2GR sounds pretty healthy. Oh, that wheel bearing is amazing. Steering wheel is off center. So something about wheel bearing diagnosis, when you drive it, gets louder when I turn left. This one actually might be a left side, but it's so loud, it's like you can't even swerve the car and feel it. But otherwise, other than wheel bearing, the car drives pretty good. Brakes, a little bit of pulsation, not too bad. Not too bad feeling the steering wheel. Check it out, it's trans shifting good. Engine sounds quiet, although you can barely hear it from the wheel bearing noise. But not a bad car. You know, sometimes you get in minivans, and this is something I've seen these when they were brand new off the truck, and now these, when they fall apart, you really can tell that they're falling apart. And the way the car feels and the steering. This one doesn't feel bad. Yeah, it has a wheel bearing, but it's hardly the big issue. Well, let's do this. Let's go back in the shop. We already know we got pulsating brakes. We know we got a wheel bearing, which just sometimes you can like put both foot on the floor and you feel one foot will vibrate more than the other. This one feels like a left front, but the only way to verify is go in the shop and we'll check it, show you how we do that as well. Looks like it has an oil change sticker at 140,000 or 141, so maybe an oil change is in order too, unless the owner did it themselves or something and that's an old sticker. We'll ask, because the date here is February. We are in July, so I hope that was an old sticker. Oh, that bearing is really bad. Got a few things with this car, but 2GR 08, these are not the happiest year for the 2GR FE. We'll go take a look. this is like the midday, right around 1 o'clock. All the shops around here, everybody's busy. This is the busy times for this area where the shop is at. There's a trucking company right here. Do a lot, they're always busy. But we're gonna head over to the shop. Our neighbor in front of us has a lot of cool muscle cars and whatnot. It's a very nice Mustang, I think Fox body Mustang they call them. It's an alcohol car. They're pretty cool. And here's a different kind of Toyota for you. It's our neighbor in their warehouse. It's a Toyota forklift. One time he asked me, do we work on these? I'm like, unfortunately we do not. Not that kind of Toyota. But let's go in the shop. This thing's a little dusty, so windshield's not very clear. Let's lift it up, let's check it out, and we'll go from there. Let's take a look. Beautiful 2GR FE. Let's pull the cover off. Let's take a look. So the first thing I notice is, you notice the appearance of this aluminum. This is not a Rust Belt car, and the owner did comment that they bought it from Florida. Took a one-way trip there and drove this back to Indiana. So very, very light seepage from the cam tower here. Not something we're gonna address. But looking around, this one does not have an oil cooler line, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But what I'm mainly concerned with is coolant levels full, radiator is good. I don't see any leaks from the radiator, which is super common on these. I mean, everything seems intact. Return line, which is very common to leak on these, is not leaking. This one, very common to leak on these. It's not. It's nice and dry. I don't see coolant from the water pump. I'm gonna look underneath the intake manifold for signs of a head gasket leak, although this is not a Rust Belt car, so I don't see anything. I think it's everything here looks in order. I don't see any major red flags. Everything looks nice and original. No zip ties everywhere, although I just said that and I see a zip tie, but that's not too bad. Let's put it up in the air. Let's take a look first at the bearing. Then we got a few other concerns we got to look into, and then we'll see what we find with this one. Did the customer do a good job buying this car, or did they buy themselves a lemon? It's not looking like a lemon so far, but let's lift it up and see. Let's give it a shake test. It's good, stable. All right, let's start our inspection here. So we don't have anything loose here, but the best way to check for bearings, especially in the front, put your hand on the spring right here and then turn the wheel. This bearing is quiet because you would feel the rumble right here. But control arm looks okay. Brakes, I'd say about 7-8 millimeters. These struts are actually original. This is kind of throwing me off because there's no rust. Usually you can tell if these are original or not by the amount of rust, but these have nothing, and they are original. See the stamping on them? Let's go check the other side, because I think that's where our bearing is. First let's see if we have any movement. We have none. I'm gonna be quiet so you guys can listen to this bearing. Put your hand here. I hope you can hear it on camera. Let's try it again. Yeah, that's this bearing, and you notice the cap is already missing. I've seen better days. Brakes are about the same, control arm the same. Don't have any movement. This strut again is original, no leaks, no rust. That's pretty good. Let's put the car all the way up and we'll look at everything. All right, well, cover's here. That's good. Let's start with our oil cooler conversation, because this is something that has come up a lot. You notice this one does not have an oil cooler. There's nothing here. This area is empty. And what's important to know is not all of these cars with the 2GR are going to have an oil cooler. Some of them will not. And if you have a Camry, ES350, they're not going to have it, even Avalon, because only the ones that have tow package. So your Sienna, Highlander, RX, Venza, these are the ones, example models that will have it. But let's start with our inspection. First, I'm going to look at the head gasket, which is nice and dry. I don't see any issues there. There's a little bit of seepage here, possibly from the rear main, but it's hardly big enough to really warrant any repairs here. Radiator bottom, let's turn around and look at it. Usually these love to leak in the corners. I don't see anything here. Let's look at the other side. I don't see anything there. So this radiator is good. They're notorious on these Siennas to leak. This is a beautiful thing, actually, I have to say, because it has no rust. You notice everything is nice and clean. Probably for the southern viewers, this is the norm for you guys. But for us, this is like, wow. I mean, a one-year-old car doesn't look like this here. So this is very nice. Another thing that is notorious for these is the rack and pinion. And this one, very little. You can see a little bit of wetness on the boot. Not too bad. How about the other boot? This one is completely dry. So doesn't need a rack and pinion. And let's look at the rest of the stuff. I don't see any issues here. Brakes do have pulsation, but they're good. This is an aftermarket axle. You can see that it's not painted here. The original axles are painted, and this one is not. So that's an aftermarket one. Same thing with this side. You can see that it's not painted. This is an aftermarket axle. We do have a small, very, very small front timing. Actually, never mind. I take that back. We do have a medium front timing cover leak. Not huge, but medium. You can see some of the oil in this area. Most people will assume that's a power steering pump. It's actually not. It's going from behind it because I see where it's exiting. And water pump looks dry. Sway bar links, good. Let's check this side. This one is good as well. If you want to check sway bar links, if you come around, Jose will show them. Here's a sway bar link, and here's your arm. You're just gonna grab the arm and move it up and down. If you don't feel any movement, the sway bar link is good. Now it has grease coming out. Folks, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's the key word here. Looking at the rest of the car, I mean, this exhaust is just beautiful. It has zero rust. Everything, usually these clamps love to break from rust. These are perfectly fine. Then we look at the engine. Head gasket, of course, is fine. That water that you see dripping is just the AC condensate. Look at this thing. Zero rust. What a beautiful sight. There's nothing leaking out of this engine, just a little bit from the front timing cover. Not a huge issue. Looking at the rest of the car, I mean, just the fact that it has no rust is a good thing. However, the AC lines are notorious to leak, although the AC worked good. But there's a notorious leak in this area for these two lines for the rear AC. And then all of a sudden you'll have all kinds of wetness in this area. This one, I don't see anything. So we don't have any leaks. Spare tire, it's very dry rotten, but it's here. And this is actually the recalled spare tire carrier, even though this is not a Southern car. It has the, if you come show them this, if you don't have this rubber tip on the carrier, you might want to replace it. There is a recall on these. This one does have the latest one. Then we look at the back. Of course, the springs are not broken because there is no rust. And I was thinking initially, I'm like, maybe this one will need springs at this miles at this age, but no. The springs look brand new. Same thing with the shock. No leaks, no issues. Rear brakes. Figure around, like 7 to 8 millimeters. It's even more than the front. They are aftermarket. By the way we tell it's aftermarket is just by looking at the shim and the shape of the paint on the pad and everything. You can tell it's not the same. This comes with practice and just seeing them all the time. So if we come around and look at the back of the pad, you notice it has writing on it and it has a single shim. I hope that is clear on video. But when you see writings on the shim, and the shim is a single piece, looks like it's glued, that's aftermarket. Originals are not like that. You know what? The owner of this car who bought it, he really did good. This thing needs a wheel bearing. Keep an eye on that front timing cover. If it gets worse, perhaps that's one big job, but this is in great shape. You find a car like this, all it needs is a wheel bearing, we're doing pretty good. There's nothing really that needs attention here. The tires, I just noticed this thing. Let's look at the date code first, because there's no point in inspecting tires that are super old. Where are you, Mr. Date Code? I don't see. There it is. 2019. So 4-year-old tires. Perhaps in the next year or two they're going to replace them anyways. They do have a little bit of dry rot, but nothing over the top. A little bit of weird edge wear, which is possibly due to not rotating them all the time. This one, not too bad. How about the front ones? Let's just double check the dates in case these were not installed. Yeah, that's 19, 34, 19. Let's check the front one. This one is 35, 19. So they're, I think they are a set here. Where are you, date code? There it is. 3519. Yeah, this is a set of tires. They're all around 4 years old. So I don't think we're going to need tires in the next year or two. But the things we're going to need addressing is that bearing. That's a pretty bad bearing. And if the customer authorizes this job, maybe we'll film it, because we never really filmed a press-on bearing, and there's a few tricks to it. Although this would be a little bit cheating because this is a rust-free example, and normally that's not the case. But hey, it looked beautiful on video, let's put it this way. The last thing we want to check here is we're going to connect the scan tool. Let's do a health check, and let's see what's up with the tire light that is flashing. Although we don't really do tire light repair because it requires you to dismount the tire. We don't do tires here. But still, we're doing full inspection. Let's give the customer an idea. Let's hook up a scan tool, see what we find. So we connected the scan tool. We have a whole bunch of codes. And let's start with the first one. Tire pressure monitor. We have ID2 and ID3, and transmitter ID2 error, vehicle speed signal error. Some of these codes might have been here for a while, and that's where things are interesting, because when I look at the data list and look at ID2 and 3, if they're reading a tire pressure, let's check it. They're both reading tire pressure except ID3. All three other ones are reading. ID3 is not reading, and that's really it. So I think what we have here is one sensor that is bad, and the other codes are just old codes. And then we have an airbag code for an off indicator open. It's a history code. I don't think that's an issue. We're going to erase it and see. And then we have air conditioning codes. We have again some random codes, and there's two codes I want to tell you about if you ever see them. Solar circuit, driver side, passenger side. Whenever you're indoors, it's going to set that code. That is normal. That is not a problem, because I've seen people chase after it. Just drive the car outside, erase them, they won't come back. That is normal for Toyotas if you see them. And I'll put these codes on the screen so you can see them. And then gateway has a history code. Let's just see what it is. These are communication stop codes. These are actually factory codes. So that means nobody's erased the codes completely out of this car since it was new. That's Toyota for you. I don't think we have much issues here, and I'm going to go ahead and erase everything and see what comes back right away, because most of the time some of these random codes, when everything else is working, could be just old codes that just stayed there. This car is in great shape, and the owner that was nervous about this car, hey, I bought it, didn't really check it very well, they did really good. You shouldn't do that. You should always get the car checked out well. Research before you go look at the car. But in this case, I'm glad. We're going to give good news. All you need is a wheel bearing, and they actually knew about it when they brought the car. It's like, we think we have a wheel bearing noise, so it's really not a huge deal. And we'll try to film this one so you guys can see it, because we've never filmed a press-on bearing, and this is a good example because there's no rust here. Folks, I think this car, we're going to refresh the health check so you can see what codes come back. This car has 14 computers. That's pretty standard. Biggest thing is the 2GR is healthy. 2GRs are very expensive, very difficult to work on when they develop their typical problems. This one doesn't have any of these. Little front timing cover leak. We're going to keep an eye on it. But otherwise, it seems like things are in order. Codes wise, let's check what comes back. Yeah, nothing came back but the solar sensors. So I think we're good. None of the codes were really serious codes to begin with. Main thing is engine codes. We do not have anything, so this car is good to go for emissions wise. But folks, I hope this video was helpful and informative. I hope you learned something new. If you like it, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some of our videos. Until the next video, folks, May the Lord bless you and keep you, and you have yourself a wonderful day.